On this week's episode of Amari Purple Talk, part 3 of my review of the 1999 Super Deluxe Edition, part 3 of the year in review, and more. Amari Purple Talk starts now. Welcome to episode 17 of Amari Purple Talk, a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical Singularity. I'm Richard Cole, your imagination funk soloist, and I want to start by thanking everyone that has tuned in. I hope you're enjoying the show. Please leave your comments on the show below or on my website, www.amaricommunications.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Amari_now and on Instagram at RichardCole_Amari. And with that out of the way, let's dive into our first topic. And our first topic is 1999 Super Deluxe Review Part 3, Back to the Future. All right, so we covered the original mastering of the 1999 album in Part 1, as well as Disc 2, which covered all the single edits, B-sides, and extended versions. Part 2 consisted of our review of Discs 3 and 4, which was all the unreleased vault material. So today we are going to dive into the remaining discs, the live recorded disc, as well as the DVD, and also a few comments on the packaging, the liner notes, and everything else. All right, so we're going to start with the live DVD and the live, well, not the live DVD, I'm sorry. We're going to start with the live CD, and that was the one live in Detroit from November 30th of 1982. Okay, so this was a highly anticipated release. Many collectors, we're going to kind of get off the bootleg track. We're just going to say collectors from here on out. So many collectors originally had an earlier recording of this. There were two shows that were conducted at the Masonic Hall in Detroit on November 30th of 1982. So many collectors had the earlier performance. So this was one of the nuggets that basically was a surprise to a lot of us. This was the recording of the second show, which not a lot of us were aware that existed. But this one was mixed by David Z. Rifkin and mastered by Bernie Grubman, and is included in the 1999 Super Deluxe Edition. And I enjoyed this a lot. I did not have the earlier show in my collection, and I don't believe I've really heard it, or I've heard it in its entirety. There's a performance from Bloomington, Indiana, that I have heard in its entirety, and I really enjoyed the rawness. I mean, it's not a completely remastered quality recording, but it's not bad for what it is. But that rawness and the performance, so that was one of my favorite performances from that particular tour. As well as there's something I had on cassette, and I'm not sure where that one was recorded, and I don't believe I have that cassette anymore, but I may try to look for it. But getting back to this was a complete surprise that this existed, and I'm glad that they included this, and I enjoy it a lot. I know when the first, sneak preview of this, when they selected 1999, this track from this disc as a sneak preview for the set, and I did my review on it. And like I said, I was very impressed with the way that it was mixed and mastered. Great sound, a lot of the basic nuances with the instruments. I'm a rhythm guitar fanatic, so to hear Prince, and Dez kind of double up on some of the kind of the rhythm parts on that, that's literally music to my ears, and I enjoy that. And hearing those subtle nuances in the mix. That let's see other let's see, of course, Head is always a favorite one of mine to listen to live, regardless of the era of that live performance. That's just kind of one of my favorites to hear. Or Do Me Baby from this entire tour, from everything that I've heard from this tour, unofficially and now officially, this particular version with this particular lineup of Prince's band is hands down pretty much my favorite live performance of this. There may be one or two in later eras that I enjoy, but hands down for me, this is my favorite rendition here. Yeah, this was a very nice piece. Like I said, the 1999 Super Deluxe overall, it's great to go back into the past, kind of revisit it. With the original CD, like I said in part one of the review, the way it was remastered, and even the enhancements along with it. But the vault tracks, and I guess we can consider this live DVD a little gem from the vault as well. As in regards to the live portion of it, again, it's nice to go back in time and revisit that era. And with the vault tracks, it was nice to experience in the here and now, because just a lot of this stuff we're hearing for the first time, or I'm hearing it for the first time. So it's kind of, even though it was around for almost 35, 40 years almost, to basically, how can I put it, there's a freshness to it. But back to the live CD, like I said, this is for that era kind of my favorite lineup of this band. And I mean, no slight to the Revolution, they put down what they put down, and there's a lot that I enjoy. Actually, I would love to see one day the June 7th, 1984, that live performance from First Avenue. That's one of my favorite live recordings. So I would like to see an official version of that with that lineup of the Revolution. But in regards to this era, this was, they put in work on this one. They brought the funk, and of course they had to, because, you had the time on their backs night after night, giving them a run for their money. So, they basically, and that band put on a show. So being the headline act, they couldn't come out weak by any stretch of the imagination. But I would like to see one day, and this will probably be some years down the line, where I would love to see Sony put out a kind of a box set from this tour. And of course, I know probably they'll focus mainly on the Prince material. But if at all possible, I'm not sure how Vanity 6 and the time, how tied up in their contracts with Warner Brothers, or if it was, all under the Prince umbrella, or any, as far as any master recordings or vault recordings go. But to include their sets along with that box set. But that's wishful thinking and a topic for another episode down the line. But yeah, for just for a first step in the right direction, yes, this live CD was perfect. And in regards to the live DVD, again, there weren't too many huge differences. Maybe a song or two in the set list. Maybe some things got switched around a little bit. But, you know, the DVD performance brought just as much energy into it. I'm glad they found footage that was professionally shot. But my one criticism, and it's a small criticism, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment of this set overall. And maybe this is something they'll get around to much later. But like I said, as far as having a little bonus, you know, this is a nice bonus to have. But as far as including just the live DVD with this, and also the live DVD from the Purple Rain Deluxe set, like I said, it's glad to have this footage available. But like I said, my one teeny tiny criticism is that I wish they would have put the time and the money into making this like a full HD master. Because, again, when they dropped the 1999 performance as sort of a sneak preview for this set, I mean, it was, you know, obviously that was the one to lead with. And I was under the impression that the entire show was going to be in that sort of shade of purple with the lighting with it. But again, like I said, teeny tiny minor criticisms. But like I said, they brought just as much energy. It's great performance, great visual performance overall. But I would love to see one day them taking the time to do HD master of this. Because, like I said, we're facing an era to where physical media, you know, is going to be limited, you know, and everything's going to be on streaming or, you know, well, basically that's it, you know, whether it's going to be Apple Plus, DVD, or Disney Plus, Netflix, you name it. So it's going to, you know, benefit the estate somewhere down the line to start having product that's going to be remastered, if possible, into that high quality. But for what it is now, like I said, it was great to see it. It really took me back to, this is something that I could have seen clips of this being on, say, something like Don Kirshner's rock concert, you know, at one point. Or, you know, maybe, I mean, MTV around that time, if, you know, such a deal could have worked out to where they would have had broadcast rights to that performance. So, yeah, again, like I said, it's a very time traveling experience to, like I said, just to be transported for a brief period back to 1982, back to 1983, you know, when, you know, this was unfolding in real time, so to speak. So, yeah, so I mean, like I said, I'm glad something like this exists. I know even back then, you know, 82, 83, 84, 85. I mean, we would have discussions, you know, friends, fellow musicians would have discussions about, you know, one day hoping something like this would come out, you know, on, you know, videotape back then. But so it's here, it's now, it's great, and I'm glad I have it. This is a really great package. Like I said, presented well. I mean, good casing. But we're going to move on to the booklet portion, all the liner notes and everything. And I'm a liner note junkie, so that's why I love about physical media so much. Whether it's a vinyl album, you know, back in the day, you know, I would put the album on, and I'm, you know, great liner notes if any. Lyrics, if any, you know, who played what and why. And kind of as I started growing and developing and understanding music and recording, then it's like, well, who wrote what? Who engineered what? Who did this? Who mixed that? Who remixed that? So, like I said, I am a liner note junkie. So, as far as the liner notes, the sort of the article by David Frick was pretty good. And of course, that's something to be expected. You know, I think just about any legendary artist would probably have, some kind of, at some point, some Rolling Stone journalist, you would want that. I guess it's kind of a badge of honor almost to have that endorsement by somebody from Rolling Stone. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty good. But like I said, that was to be expected. The liner notes by Andrea Swenson. I didn't do any further reviews. I did do a review of part 1 of the podcast of 1999, The Story So Far. But by the time the first episode dropped, and then by the time I did my review, then we got the actual, most of us got the actual set in our hands and was knee deep in listening to it. So I would go back later as each episode would drop and give it a listen. And it was a pretty good, I kind of wish in a way that they had done just a little documentary. And again, yeah, I'm sure there were time constraints as well as budget constraints. And again, this is not a complaint, but just an observation. But that being said, the podcast was a great idea. It's modern. It's a form of marketing that's sort of, I guess, state of the art now. But I would have loved to have seen that done as a DVD included with this set. And the reasoning behind it is because basically, as I was reading Andrea Swenson's liner notes, to me they were pretty much a note for note take from the podcast episode. And, I don't know if that was intentional or just because, like I said, because of maybe time constraints of getting this released and packaged and put together. Maybe that was something that was a minor, something that was overlooked maybe a little bit. But like I said, I think I would have enjoyed the liner notes better had I not heard episode 1 of the podcast. Because, like I said, it's almost kind of a note-for-note accounting from the podcast, on down to the interviews. But again, small potatoes, it's great. For those that have not heard the podcast at all, then if you're reading the liner notes, then yes, by all means, it's a great set of notes. And it gives a really great backstory to the creation of the 1999 album. And then from there, one of my biggest surprises, and maybe not so much, I mean, I knew going in that Duff McKagan was a huge Prince fan, and this was based off of a video I had seen on YouTube maybe months before the announcement of the release of the 1999 album. So I knew he was a huge Prince fan. And kind of as we were getting information about the packaging of this set and that he was included amongst the contributors for the liner notes, like I said, a surprise, but maybe not surprising. But as I read his liner notes, I think the surprise was not only was he a Prince fan, but, he also had opportunities to meet him. The first one may not have gone over so well, but in telling his story, it's a very personal account of the difference that Prince made in his life, both, I guess professionally and personally. I don't want to give away any spoilers for those that do not have the 1999 Deluxe set yet. And I know there's people that are still patiently waiting for theirs to arrive. So, like I said, I won't spoil it. But like I said, this was a huge, not huge. This was a pretty good surprise. Like I said, surprised, but not surprised with it. And he's also had a opportunity to meet Peggy McCreary, one of the engineers, which, again, a minor thing, And I don't know, maybe this will change once everything is under the umbrella of Sony. But, when you look at other, I guess, legendary box set releases or legacy releases, usually somehow the original engineers are involved in some way, shape, or form. Like Eddie Kramer had been with Jimi Hendrix from the very beginning, all the way up until the end. So by Jimi Hendrix enlisting him among the key people to oversee a lot of Jimi Hendrix's recordings, as well as live material, unreleased material, putting together the compilations, the box sets, it's logical. A lot of the Miles Davis material, I had the benefit of, I think back when CDs were at their 20-bit to 24-bit remastering technology, the original engineer for a lot of the Miles Davis stuff, he was utilized for that. And I think some of the stuff Bob Dylan too. But anyway, but like I said, it's a minor thing. And like I said, maybe that's something that, most of that's under Sony now anyway, the Miles Davis stuff and the Hendrix stuff too. And now they'll have all of Prince's stuff, especially after 2021. So maybe that's something that they'll suggest to the estate at some point. And we know that Prince went through a lot of different engineers, and that's fine. But, try to utilize the original ones from that particular era. And with that being said, it's great to interview them and stuff and get a lot of inside information. But it would be nice for them to revisit that material and really ensure that this was the sound that he was going after. This is the sound that he wanted. This is what he would have done had the technology been available, that type of thing. But at the same time, preserving the original integrity of that original album. Okay, so like I said, minor thing, moving on to the next thing. And then there's, of course, Dwayne Toot Hall's information along with each of the vault tracks, providing a historical perspective. And what I really loved about it was the inclusion, because he's done this with his book, The Purple Rain Sessions as well, where he was able to utilize various quotes from Prince kind of like the framework for the era, or as a commentary on that era as well. Because I remember this particular quote. This was from the Rolling Stone interview from 1985. And this quote, and he leads off these liner notes with this quote. It's, I have the follow-up album to 1999. I could put it all together and play it for you, and you would go, yeah. And I could put it out, and it would probably sell what 1999 did. But I always try to do something different and conquer new ground. Okay, so that's basically the vault tracks in a nutshell. Because, like I said, I remember reading that and holding on to that quote from that Rolling Stone interview for years. Oh, he's got the sequel to 1999. Like, thinking like it's sequenced, and like something like Dream Factory where it's sequenced, or Camille, like it's sequenced, and it's like it's just sitting in the vault, and one of these years we'll get to hear it. And what does it sound like? How does it sound like 1999? And especially when you're kind of going through periods where, like I said, we all at this stage, we all have our favorite eras, we all have our favorite albums from each era, and music being subjective, there's people that will like certain albums and people that don't like certain albums. And sometimes on those days where there's that certain album that you don't like, you would refer to this quote and go, yeah, I really want to hear the sequel to 1999 right now. But I felt that was a great way to lead it off. And there was another quote as well. Let me see if I can try to find it. All right, and this will sort of put the punctuation on this huge debate of what he would have wanted, what he didn't want, and all of that. But I love this quote that follows, or the commentary for the song Teacher, Teacher. And I'm not sure where this quote came from. However, the quote goes, "In the end, I want to have a huge body of work. My children will be able to pull finished songs out of the vault." So basically, and this is speculation on my part, but based on that quote, my understanding is this. In his lifetime, he was always going to give you something new and current. And I mean, I don't mean style-wise or following trends or anything like that. But every new song was going to be new. If there was something from the past, he could cherry pick it and, overdub it and put it out. Now, Graffiti Bridge, after hearing a lot of these vault tracks, Graffiti Bridge is the very great example of the cherry picking and updating process of that. So that's what we would have gotten had he lived, and we probably never would be hearing the majority of these songs other than through our sort of private collections, so to speak. But it says, "My children will be able to pull finished songs out of the vault." Now, it's unfortunate that he wasn't able to, have heirs in that manner. But that is what I always felt that he was referring to. And kind of like I said, probably maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what his mind frame is. There's certain interviews from the late 90s, early 2000s. So we don't know if he was going to be optimistic about heirs at that point, or like I said, we don't know. But I feel that that's the thing. It's like once he was gone, then there's this body of material that's left, and to whoever was going to benefit from it, it was there for them to benefit. And I don't want to put that in a facetious way, but in that sort of familial way of, okay, if there's not heirs as far as children, then there are the surviving relatives. And, that's what, when you have wealth and things like that, those are the things that you take into consideration. And again, unfortunately, he did not have a will. But like I said, things are the way they are. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. But like I said, those are the two things about these liner notes from Dwayne Tudhall. And there's other interesting tidbits and history. So I would be looking forward to whatever his next volume is. If it's Dwayne, I don't know what you're working on. So, or what era is going to be the next step. But at some point, I am looking forward to the volume covering the era of 1999. So, whatever era you're working on next, yes, I will. You have my money already, so don't worry. But I am looking forward to the 1999 Sessions book volume that comes out from you. So that's going to end this topic. What do you guys think? Like I said, I've covered this in 3 parts. There's other podcasters that have covered it in multiple parts as well. I'm still buzzed on this whole set. I'm going to be buzzed on this set for a while, and probably buzzed on it until we get the next big Super Deluxe edition. Now, I'll be excited about whatever Sony puts out as far as the reissues that they have in their possession. So, but that's for me filling in the gaps or getting something that's out of print. But when whatever next year's Super Deluxe edition is going to be, I'm going to be buzzed on this set for quite a while until I get that next set. So again, what do you guys think? Leave a comment, and that will end this topic. And we're going to move right on to our next topic, which is Parade versus Around the World in a Day. These are the poll results. So based on the last poll, which was Sign of the Times versus Parade, as a question, this is kind of like a football pool for Prince fans. So, don't get too panicky and go, well, the estate's going to do what they're going to do, and I'd rather have this is for fun, folks. So this is, like I said, a football pool for Prince fans. So based on last week's poll, because I did a segment regarding what would the next deluxe edition would be. And I was like leaning more towards Sign of the Times. I know a couple of listeners brought up Parade. So that led to me creating the poll of Sign of the Times versus Parade. And that was last week's poll. And that one yielded a 64% for Warner Brothers releasing Sign of the Times before they lose that license to Sony in 2021 over Parade, which Warner Brothers will have forever because it's under a different contract than Prince's standard recording contract, because it is songs that were used as the soundtrack to a major motion picture. So it was 64% for Sign of the Times being Warner Brothers' next deluxe edition release. 36% said nope, Parade's going to be next. So during that poll, there was some comments saying that, hey, what about Around the World in a Day? I would really like to have an Around the World in a Day. And it got me thinking, that's not a bad idea. Around the World in a Day isn't quite, it's not in my top 5, I'll put it that way. It might make the top 10 for me, but it's not necessarily in my top 5. However, there are songs on that album that I do enjoy, and they're probably the same songs that you enjoy as well. In addition to that, the B-sides were immaculate. In fact, to me, the B-sides were better than some of the tracks on the original album. Then, like I said, as the more I got to thinking about it, if you read Dwayne Tudor's book, The Purple Rain Sessions, you see that overlap of where he was finished recording songs for Purple Rain, and then there's songs that were either going to go to the time had they stayed together, which actually some may have ended up with the family, but even as the family was coming together as a concept, there were songs for that. And then somewhere in the middle of all of that, there's songs that would become part of Around the World in a Day. And I'm going, yeah, you could definitely include a lot of those Prince versions, demos, whatever you want to call it, unreleased tracks from the vault with him singing on it. Because we've already had the Nothing Compares to You. Now, I don't know the full extent of the official release of that, but it was my understanding that somehow that had been, remixed from its original version. Somehow, I don't know the history behind it. I'll have to reread the book and kind of see what the history on the song itself is and go from there. But there are songs from the Family album with Prince's voice that you could include on that set. I'm going, yeah, there's that. Then you got the B-sides. And whatever other surprises. Then, of course, you got extended version. There's 2 or 3 different extended versions of Pop Life you can include. There's a lot you can go with that. So I'm like, yeah, that can work. I can do that. Yeah, I can see that happening. So I decided to do another poll. And that poll was, do you think Warner Brothers will release Parade before 2021 or Around the World in a Day? So here are the results. So we have 62% that voted Parade as the next Super Deluxe edition before 2021 versus the 38% for Around the World in a Day. Now, I'll tell you, as the poll was going, this was a much closer race. So, kind of towards the end, the Parade supporters kind of gathered more steam. But like I said, for the first half that this poll was being conducted, it was a much closer race for, argument for Around the World in a Day. So there you have it. You have 62% for Parade, 38% for Around the World in a Day. So again, I don't know. I'm in this particular one. I wouldn't be mad if they would do a Super Deluxe edition of Around the World in a Day, and I can wait for Parade. But there was I was watching a clip from Parade. It was the sequence, the little dance sequence with him and Mary Sharon and the Alexa Day. I can't talk. Alexa Day Paris was the song in the background. And that's one of my favorite B-sides also. I used to love listening to that B-side back when it was released in '86. And it's still one I go like to enjoy from time to time when I go back to it. And of course, you listening to that and it's like, oh yeah, I kind of enjoyed that film a little bit, and the music was great on that. And yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a Parade release as soon as possible. But for me, it's I'm leaning in this particular poll, I'm leaning more towards Around the World in a Day. And that's just because of the family era tracks. You probably get a 2020 remastering of 100 miles per hour, or there may be an additional version that we don't know about that exists that would fit perfectly for that. Like I said, the B-sides. I think I need to hear She's Always in My Hair, the extended version, before I get my hands on anything from a Parade Super Deluxe right now. So I think I'm going to lean more towards Around the World in a Day, just a little bit past Parade. Now, of course, there's no contest for Sign of the Times. I want that Super Deluxe. But like I said last week, if it's necessary to wait till it's in the hands of Sony, I'd be willing to wait. So there you have it. So again, Parade is in this week's poll, beat out Around the World in a Day. Thank you to everyone that participated in the voting. Thanks for listening into the show. Hope you're tuning in. And also, too, leave your comments. Or even if you didn't participate in the poll, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. What Super Deluxe Edition would you like to see next? The clock is ticking on Warner Brothers' possession of the classic material. They will have in their possession, as long as a Warner Brothers and Warner Brothers Pictures exist, they will have possession of Purple Rain, Parade, Batman, and Graffiti Bridge. So they can sit and wait and release those at any time. But they would have to get permission from the estate to license the vault material, though, which is the case now. But this license agreement is based on the original license agreement that Prince signed with Warner Brothers in 2014, which granted him the rights to his master recordings back. So technically the estate owns the classic material. Warner Brothers holds the license. So there you have it. All right. But anyway, like I said, let me know what you think. Leave a comment. And we're going to end this topic. And then we're going to move to our third topic. And our third topic is the State of the Union. Not play on words, folks. A brief commentary. I will try to make this brief. I'm not sure because I had to do a lot of research on this. This is a topic I really wanted to avoid discussing, but every blue moon in between the hype for this 1999 Super Deluxe, this is a news item that just kept coming up in different commentary or different aspects of social media. And I don't know, I tried to avoid it, but I think I am going to try my best to weigh in on it. Like I said, I had to do a ton of research on it. And basically, it's what it is. It's surrounding Prince's sister, Tyka Nelson, handing over a portion of her stake in the Prince estate, selling a portion of that to an entertainment company called Primary Wave. So a couple of weeks back, Tyka Nelson filed a declaration saying that she appointed Primary Wave as her power of attorney, which will speak and act on her behalf in connection with the estate in estate-related matters. Okay, and I guess the statement, the statement in the declaration, she goes on to say that Primary Wave has a strong record of accomplishment, working with, respecting, and monetizing unique assets held by the estates of talented artists, and I believe Primary Wave will bring its experience to bear for the benefit of my brother's estate and all of its beneficiaries. Okay, so let's see. Now, this was from an article on Fox 9. And I believe it was on based in Philadelphia, I believe. But yeah, I tried to do some additional research. I couldn't find any official, newspaper sources, news channel sources. A lot of other sources were like Yahoo News and things like that. So kind of wanted to find as close to a credible source as I could find on this. Of course, the court papers, they're pretty much matter of public record, so I think you can access those somehow and take a look at the actual filing of it. But upon hearing this news initially, because I'm like, well, who is Primary Wave, and why is she selling a portion to them, and could this be the biggest mistake ever? Well, without doing the necessary research, my initial reaction, it automatically went back to, and like I said, I always use this as an example because to me, personally, out of the legendary artists that we all listen to in regards to the handling of their estate, to me, the best shining example is the Jimi Hendrix estate, which is, the Experience Hendrix LLC, which is run by Jimi Hendrix's sister. And like I said, she has a pretty good team of people in place that helps her run that. And that's one of the best shining examples, probably followed by maybe Frank Zappa. Even though I know their family had been at odds over the handling of the estate over the years. I don't know the state of it. Tom Petty is a recent one where there were some family squabbles. But recently, just in the past week, they've managed to put their differences aside. So now fans of Tom Petty will be able to hear certain material that, had been on the back burner because of all this infighting with the estate. So getting back to the Prince estate, like I said, before I started doing my homework on this, like I said, was it a bad idea? Because going back to the Jimi Hendrix example, it wasn't always as perfect as I'm making it out. Of course, Jimi did have a will, and his father was the beneficiary of the estate. So he held on to it for a couple of years, and he made a deal that sounded quite similar to this deal that Tyka Nelson is making. Now, the fundamental difference between the two was that Al Hendrix was the sole beneficiary of the estate. Now, Hendrix's other siblings, of course, legally could qualify, but Jimi's father was the named sole beneficiary, I guess, if I'm interpreting that correctly. Where Tyka, even though she didn't have to do this initially, but she is one of many family members that have a vote in what goes on, or say in what goes on. So there's your fundamental difference there. But getting back to Al Hendrix, like I said, he held on to control of the estate for a while, but signed a deal that pretty much swindled him out of control. And he sued, and it took about 20 years. But in that 20 years, whoever had whatever master recording of, not the official material, there was no jeopardy as far as the official material, because basically whoever, I think was it, I forget what Jimi's label was, because there was one, he was signed to a label in England, but the United States distribution rights was, I think, Reprise, which was a subsidiary of Warner Brothers at that time, in the early 70s. But as far as any unreleased material, whoever had control of that could release it in any way, shape, or form that they saw fit. So you had a lot of Jimi Hendrix material that was overdubbed and remixed and didn't follow the original notes. I don't even think Eddie Kramer was involved with a lot of it. If he was forced to work under conditions that were against what Jimi's original intention for the recordings were. Yeah, it was pretty complicated. And as the years went on, the material that was ending up in the hands of supporters of Jimi Hendrix, that it was really terrible quality, really terrible. But like I said, it took 20 years to sue and successfully win those rights back. And once they got control of those rights, by then Jimi's sister was old enough to, have a say in as well. And I think Jimi's father, appointed her as the one. So they were kind of running it together until he passed, and then now she's the sole controller of what goes on with Experience Hendrix LLC. All right, so that being said, that was my initial reaction, was that this is what this is going to end up being all over again. However, the fundamental difference here is that the estate, their personal representative, Comerica Bank and Trust, they're the ones arguing that this primary wave should not have the same rights as the heirs. And they recently filed a motion to deny the primary wave request. Okay. So, again, I'm like, well, what is a primary wave? It sounds like something from science fiction. You know, it sounds like it's like some weird cult, you know, or some alien, you know, they're secretly aliens. That's what it sounds like to me. So I'm like, well, what is a primary wave? So I started doing my homework. So this is what they are. And this is from their actual website. So I'll go into that, and then I'll kind of go into my other tidbits of research from there. So this is from their website, the Primary Wave website. Primary Wave is one of the largest independent music publishing, talent management, production, and entertainment and branding companies in the United States. Founded in 2006. So now, under the Primary Wave umbrella, there are two core businesses: Primary Wave Music Publishing, LLC, and its sister company, Primary Wave Entertainment, LLC. Primary Wave Entertainment is a powerhouse talent management company that provides full access and opportunities for their clients, working closely with them to guide their careers and achieve their goals across the entertainment landscape. Collectively, the new talent management roster includes Brandy, CeeLo Green, Melissa Etheridge, Fantasia, Cypress Hill. And it's a lot of names. I'll just kind of read a few more here. Eric Benet, Toots and the Maytals. Let's see, this company, it also has a film, TV production arm, which is responsible for creating, developing, and or producing a number of critically acclaimed TV shows and films. Okay. Now, I haven't seen any of these. One of these is Kurt Cobain's Montage of Heck, and CeeLo Green's The Good Life, and recently Loudermilk and Hit the Road. Now, I've never heard of any of these. If either of you or any of you have seen any of these or have any knowledge of it, feel free to reach out and hit me to it. Shoot me a YouTube link, or I may at some point check it out a little bit later down the line. But yeah, they have their hand in a lot of what I call IP being the new currency. So they have a lot of hands in kind of covering that ground. You know, so this is entertainment in the 21st century as we now know it. So digital marketing, brand synergy group, publicity, and TV film production development. Let's see, they have acquired the copyrights of over 15,000 songs from the catalogs of legendary artists such as Bob Marley, Smokey Robinson, Kurt Cobain, Aerosmith, John Lennon, Def Leppard, Hall & Oates, and Chicago. And like I said, there's a long list of artists that they control the publishing of now. Sly and the Family Stone. Now, I thought Michael Jackson at one point owned Sly's publishing. That was one of the first acquisitions since getting that advice from Paul McCartney. And there had been rumors that he gave the publishing back to Sly recently, in the years prior to Michael's passing. So I don't know how substantiated or how true they are, but that had been sort of the rumor that had been going around. But I know Sly was awarded, I forget how many millions, but I mean, he was basically broke and almost literally homeless, like living in a trailer in the driveway of his kids' homes, an RV. He was living like in an RV. So I don't know. Maybe he made a deal with this company to, keep the money coming in, I guess. But anyway, that's their sort of mission statement in a nutshell. Okay, so like I said, I did a lot of research into this company. They started out with just a couple of people, but now they have offices in New York, Los Angeles, and London. They started off as a publishing company, but have grown into a full-service music and entertainment company. They have in-house resources such as talent management, digital marketing, branding, and again, film and television. They do placements. Now, I won't say that's limited to music, but we'll just say primarily music. But they make sure that the songs in their publishing catalog are placed in film, TV, advertising, video games, and other new media. They also have creative licensing deals for their publishing clients. One of the examples was a deal with Converse in 2008, creating a limited edition of Kurt Cobain's sneakers. And that also included graphic designs, his signature, and song lyrics on those sneakers. In 2009, they also had a marketing campaign with Aerosmith as the first ever artist-branded scratch-off lottery ticket, which featured the band's likeness. And they also used the song Dream On as part of the marketing campaign as well. Here's some other things. Now, this is going to kind of go into cringe-worthy territory here. And I guess why some people are afraid, and you probably should have a right to be. They created an animated cartoon called J-Stash, which is based on John Oates of Hall & Oates, folks. John Oates' signature mustache, which debuted on the show Funny or Die in 2012. Okay, that's basically the gist of what this company is about. So it's it's not a cult, folks. Well, yeah, but it's part of this new model of the entertainment industry, and I'm not just limiting it to music, because really nowadays, it's kind of like almost the old days where you had to do everything. You had to sing, you had to act, you had to dance, you had to do comedy, you had to do just about everything as an entertainer. Well, it's kind of looking like that now, but it's digital, so it's taking your likeness and making holograms and sending your hologram on tour. It's, it's placing your songs in the most, to me, most god awful places. My sort of day job, I am forced to hear, well, first there was no music at all. And, the thing was, oh, it's too quiet around here. Oh, we need, oh, there should be music. Well, the powers that be in corporate decided, well, you shall have music. And for the first 6 months, year, whatever, that was cool. That was cool. But however they were piping the songs in, they never changed it. So for about 6 years, it was the same rotation of songs over and over and over and over. And I mean, it got to the point that I was this close to writing to the Geneva Convention, because I swore I was like in Abu Ghraib somewhere or something, where you're being tortured with the same, that was one of the forms of torture, folks, yeah, so I mean, this is the state of the world that we live in, no matter where you go. And first, and then what makes this such a crime is that these things are, they're piping this in by demographics. So if, wherever your retail business is, folks, if it's in an urban area, then you're going to get more black music piped in. If you're out in, more, if your place of business is in more affluent, whatever you want to call it, elitist, whatever, then, it's like, I remember this one guy comes in and he's like, man, how do you guys put up with listening to these ditzy girl songs? And it's these kind of, these type, but it's over and over and over. And I mean, there's one or two classics or whatever, songs that stand the test of time that you never get tired of, no matter how many times you hear it. But those were few and far between. That's gotten a little bit better. And, little bit better. But, give it another couple of years, it's still going to be, it's going to get old again. So, this is the world that we live in, where, the songs are everywhere. It's kind of the appeal of vinyl is that you can't take your vinyl everywhere. When it got to cassettes and then CDs, then, it was kind of cool to put it in your car and listen to it. It kind of became cool to make your own playlists with cassettes, and take your cassette with you, play it in the car. It was cool to, eventually when you got to MP3s, you, instead of putting your store-bought CD and having it get messed up over time, then you could burn your copy or whatever, or make your own playlists based off your CD collection and take your collection of songs with you in the car. But, now it's gotten to the point, every single store, whether it's a grocery store, a clothing store, or whatever retail establishment, even elevator music, which we used to really hate because it was just these stringed, Muzak versions of popular tunes. Now it's, if you get in an elevator, then you're going to hear somebody selling you something, and then you're going to hear a song. You even go to the gas station and there's radio playing from the pumps. But I'm digressing. But this is what this type of company does, is what I'm saying. And, that to me is part of the controversy behind this move. Now, granted, Comerica Bank is just that. They are a bank. Their job is to basically hold your money, and two, they offer services of things that have been tried and true since the banking system was created way back in the first century, which is basically loans and interest in investments, loans on real estate, or you put your money in the CD, have it mature, that type of thing. or money markets, or if they have like certain qualified financial advisors on staff, how to develop your portfolio so that you'll have either a nice nest egg, or you could build wealth, or you can have something to leave, your heirs at some point. And that's their job. Their job isn't really necessarily to really tell you how to, if you're an artist, basically, well, this is what you should do to, put that record out, or sell this song to A, B, and C. But as a financial advisor, the thing is, okay, as an estate, you guys own all this material. You're going to have to use it to generate a certain amount of income, because you have to offset the tax person, because there was no will. There's a big, huge inheritance tax, and you're going to have to pay that off before you even see a penny. And I guess in that particular case, in her defense, then it's like, yeah, here's, it's 2006, almost 4 years. And, you're kind of starving, but then you're left with this huge responsibility that's supposed to be generating, well, it's generating millions of dollars. But you're seeing little reward of that. Now, like I said, the end game is that you want absolute control. And like I said, the estate, as far as I know, doesn't listen to this program. I'm just a guy sitting in a chair talking into a microphone that has a huge interest in music, the music that has some knowledge of the music business, so to speak. But, I'm not anybody that's, you just take my advice with a grain of salt. Let's put it that way. But, I'm nobody where I could say, hey, estate, you need to be doing this. This is a show where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical Singularity, and that's what it is. It's just my thoughts. So that being said, yeah, if you're sitting around and, there's all this money and it's just out of reach, and you're tired of being hungry. Like I said, the end game is to get where Jimi Hendrix is, to get to that spot, to where all the decisions are hers. She's making the deals. She's reaping the benefits of it. And like I said, yeah, it took Al Hendrix, suing endlessly for nearly 20 years in order for his daughter to get that level of control. But these are the lessons to be learned in that. And like I said, I see the one hand where it's like, hey, this might be a smart move. Because, yeah, like I said, I didn't know what a primary wave was, but doing the research, I see the good and bad in it, because it's like, yeah, there's the potential that, what was the credit card? Was it Credit One or something? And they were using Let's Go Crazy. They were using other songs from the 80s too. And I think a couple of those worked better for that ad campaign. But the way they utilize the song Let's Go Crazy, if you really listen, if you know what that song is about, all our Prince supporters, fans, collectors, friends, whatever you want to call yourselves, you know what that song is about. You know what the lyrics are to that song. And here you have this credit card commercial and you got kids running around, and it's like, no, that doesn't fit. So this is the sort of danger in regards to where these songs can now end up in the hands, or if primary. Now, remember, this isn't a controlling vote. This isn't a controlling voice. But sometimes if you crack the door open just a little bit, it does leave enough room for certain entities or certain energies to infiltrate. So, like I said, there's good and bad in it. Like I said, they're qualified in regards to that they have a deeper hand. Now, they do have clients. like I said, John Lennon is named as one of the clients, or well, Yoko Ono, who controls the John Lennon estate, obviously made a publishing deal that was obviously beneficial and lucrative to her. And what, now as far as the Beatles, that's a different thing. That's a whole different thing. Now, she does have 25% of John's controlling interest in the Beatles Apple Records, their company, which, whenever there's any type of Beatle product that's on the market, whether it's been these 50th anniversary releases, she's 25% of the vote on the behalf of the estate of John Lennon. So there's that. But as far as John Lennon's solo material, what she's been authorizing, or what she's been in control of putting out, has been amazing over the years. Some of the reissues, the one Imagine, I still have to get my hands on that one. That collection, that ultimate collection, but like I said, it's business, and you have to keep that money rolling in. You have to, money isn't everything, but like I said, when you're dealing with things of that nature, you and I are nowhere near qualified to make decisions on how things should be handled. Again, as far as this goes, this is a podcast where I share my thoughts on the Prince musical Singularity. So, yeah, I can share my thoughts on, I can play, armchair record executive and say you should do this or you should do that. But like I said, these are their lives that they're living, and these are decisions that have been thrust upon them. And sometimes you do have to eat, I know somebody posted a picture like, well, yeah, if she needs the money, well, look at what kind of car she's driving. Yeah, that's irrelevant. If you go to, you make the right deal with a dealership, you can walk away with something decent and nice. And there are people that do have things that are decent and nice and don't have two pennies to rub together. And it's not even about common sense. But that's not the point. The point is that this is something that's legally entitled to her, and legally she can make whatever decision she wants. Point blank. Which is why I tried to avoid commenting on this. But the more it kept popping up, it's like, well, what the heck is a primary wave? And why is she making a deal? I mean, beyond the obvious reasons. And you have the other members of the estate, the other family members that are totally against this idea for the obvious reasons, because the end game in this is that you want to be the Jimi Hendrix in this equation. You want to be the one that's in control of the estate. Now, in comparison, if you look at what's happened in the years since Michael has passed, and what's weird is that, Prince had problems with Warner Brothers, but I think he was smart enough, even though we thought, or some people thought, he was a little bit off at first, but now we see the logic. He didn't take Warner Brothers to court. He didn't necessarily 100% badmouth Warner Brothers, or even he started off, he kind of pulled back and say, hey, I'm not mad at anybody. I just want what's entitled to me, period. So the way that he left things was that he was able to at least eventually reach a settlement with Warner Brothers that allowed him to get exactly what he wanted in the first place. Even before then, he played the game well enough to make deals like with Sony for musicology, and I think Planet Earth too. And let's see, there was the deal with Universal for 3121 when that was originally released. So to make these deals, Arista for Raven to the Joy Fantastic, there was that. So it was left to where, Here, they are the so-called greedy record companies, and of course, that's the role that they play. But the reason we're getting, as supporters, collectors, fans, friends, we're getting material at the rate that we're getting it is because of the energy that was put forth. Where, Michael, on the other hand, left Sony in a with very many bridges burned. So by the end of it, it became this thing to where they were able to maneuver the circumstances to gain 100% control of the Sony publishing, where it was originally a 50-50 split between the two. So you have where they now have 100% control and basically paid them off. Here's $750 million. We'll take control over this. Well, you can have Thriller back. You can have Off the Wall back. Yeah, you can have Bad back. Yeah, anything that Michael Jackson's done, you can have those master recordings back. You can have that publishing. You can keep that. We'll take all of this. We'll give you $750 million for your troubles. And that's it. But you have to look, again, the end game and all of that. Now, to us, yes, $750 million is a whole hell of a lot of money. But when you look at the billions that the Sony ATV publishing is worth, to paraphrase something that Prince said, we'll substitute the names. Michael got screwed. So to Michael Jackson fans, that's why you're not seeing quality reissues of anything. Now Motown is a different story, and to me, there's been better stuff that has been reissued on the Jackson 5, on Michael Jackson, during their tenure at Motown, in the years before Michael passed and in the years since, that have basically outshined anything that Sony has ever done for Michael since 2009. And like I said, they also have, they have Prince stuff now. They have Bob Dylan. They have Miles Davis. They have Jimi Hendrix. And like I said, you look at what all of those re-releases and box sets and anniversary, whatever. There's been little or nothing on Michael. So bringing this all back home, and then we can move on to our final topic. Do I think that this is a good idea or a bad idea? Like I said, initially I went in thinking 100% this is a bad idea. Now, after doing my research, I'm 50-50 on it. That she made she made a business decision, which was a logical business decision, which included a qualified, reputable company. But like I said, if based on the thing, and do your research, you can look on their website. You can do additional research on this primary wave. Like I said, okay, are we? I don't want to see a cartoon about Prince's hairdo. So I don't want to see that. I don't want to see. Heck, let me see. Let me pick a song. Okay, The Cross. I don't want to see The Cross selling cereal, or, selling sneakers, or anything like that. Now, close. If you can pull it as close to, or if you can tie Colin Kaepernick into it some way, then that's different. Okay, I'll go with that then. But, like I said, I don't want to see it selling, I don't want to hear Computer Blue selling insurance, or Let's Go Crazy selling Liberty Mutual or anything like that. None of that. So on the one hand, yeah, it's a bad idea on that level. But again, we've seen, comments from some of the other, that the estate is sinking and nobody, but they're not getting along. They're not on the same page. And I think she just made a business decision, or as Cat Williams said, I think she went and made a pimp decision. However, it's walking a fine line of making the pimp decision and being pimped at the same time. And like I said, I don't know when this company acquired, but let's see. They have recently acquired the rights to Bob Marley's material, because the guy Chris Blackwell that started Island Records and signed Bob Marley to a record deal. So everything under that umbrella, which I guess Bob Marley would be the most high profile artist in that equation. Now, here we go on that level, because like I said, the playing field is a little bit different, black and white. So, here's the thing, when it comes to the, like I said, we talked about Michael, we talked about Bob Marley. Here's this thing to where this control is going 100% somewhere else. Someone else is reaping these benefits. The CEO of Primary Wave is reaping the benefits in this Bob Marley equation. But like I said, Yoko Ono, if you do your homework on her, her family comes from, her family was part of the Yakuta banking clan. So you do your homework on that one. So, yeah, she kind of grew up rebellious and didn't want any part of that life or that lifestyle. But you got to remember one thing. All these people that hate on Yoko Ono, John Lennon was just the artist, with, barely a second year art college education. And he was the first to tell you he knows nothing about business. He's not Mick Jagger, who, again, if you do your homework, went to the London School of Economics. So basically, Rolling Stones ain't going to be broke. And really, to be honest, unless John would get some business advice from Paul if he had never had a Yoko Ono in his life. But because of what she does understand about business, when John Lennon passed, he passed with a net worth of estimated $150 million. And that would not have happened if he was not married to Yoko Ono. But that being said, trust me, if she was going to make a deal with a Primary Wave, believe you me, she got something very significant out of it. So which brings us, again, bring this home, and then we'll move on to our final. Hopefully, that's the power play in this decision, is to come up with a way to maximize the resources in the estate that can start bringing income in a lot faster and make it a lot more lucrative. So again, all the haters out there, this end game, like I said, hopefully none of us will ever be in a position to have to make decisions about that regarding. And yeah, it's only money anyway. There's more to life that's much more precious than money. But unfortunately, people have to have a roof over their heads and they have to eat. But the thing, again, is freedom, ownership, and the definition of funk. So we're hoping that's what the power play in this equation is. So that's my stance on it. At first, I was like 100% against it. Now I'm 50-50 on it, and we'll just see how this plays out. If the courts decide to accept this as a legal option, then like I said, we'll see how this unfolds, and I'll continue to cover it as that unfolds. But if the courts decide to shut it down and it's a one and done, and this topic will be regulated into the archives along with the previous episodes. But what do you think? Based on this information, do you think it's a better idea than when you first initially heard it? Or do you think it's 100% a terrible idea, that it's going to end up to where there's going to be even more court and more legal entanglements having this company involved? And would it be opening the door to Taika losing controlling interests, or a way to infiltrate and influence the other heirs to lose control? Leave me a comment. And with that, we're going to end that topic and move on to our final topic. And the final topic is going to be a continuation, part 3 of our year in review. And this week's year in review is the album Originals. All right, so back in September, we got the release of the CD Originals, which is basically a compilation of Prince's either original take or demo or rough vocals of songs that were made famous or popular or hits by other artists. Now, when this was initially teased, I saw the cover first. There was no information about what this was or anything. It was just the cover. And, it's a Dirty Mind era photograph. The famous, I think this is Alan Boyu. I can't pronounce his last name. But he covered a lot of the classic era from kind of like this Dirty Mind period, 1999, all the way through Parade. And it's the famous shots of him with the spray paint. And like I said, and I think a later photo, and it had Prince, and then it had Originals. And I'm like, what is this? And my first thought was that, this is going to be a CD of unreleased Dirty Mind era tracks, or tracks from 80, 81. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on board. And then the information started leaking out about what this album really was. And I think what was leaked next was the track listing. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, it's not Dirty Mind era. I don't know if I would have gone with this cover, because the cover's like, yeah, that's what should be on this. But I'm like, okay, Sex Shooter, so okay, Jungle, okay, Noon Rendezvous, 100 miles per hour, okay, Baby Your Trip, okay. I'm like, okay, yeah, doesn't match the cover, but I'll take it. I'll take it. So, and when this was, and I was excited, don't get me wrong. I was excited to get my hands on it, excited to pre-order it and everything. And when I got it, I was happy. I mean, this to me was the first step in the right direction for the estate, and the decision making. Probably thanks to Michael Howe being involved in this process of archiving the material and, picking out ideas of what the next set of, releases should be. Because, things like the Piano and Microphone 1983, I thought was nice. It wasn't what I wanted immediately. It did represent a certain piece for us collectors that I personally never had and had never heard. So it was nice to get it just on that basis. And it was like, okay, cool. Now I've got it. Now I've heard it. But I wouldn't have done it. Or if I was going to do it, like I said, my criticism with that set, as well as the Originals, was just in the liner notes. It was just like they were really basic liner notes. And you have to buy the vinyl or deluxe set with the vinyl and the CD in order to get really comprehensive liner notes. And I think that the liner notes should be across the board. So this is something that I'm glad they rectified with the 1999 deluxe edition, in that they included a substantial set of liner notes with the CD and with the vinyl as well. But yeah, so for me, like I said, this was a first step in the right direction for the estate's decision making on what to release next. Because there were a lot of surprises. There were songs. Well, we know that obviously there were, we kind of have a basic idea of what Prince's recording process is like. I think we kind of get quantum leaps of that more so as these deluxe sets come out, and also too with originals. But yeah, I don't think I ever imagined a Prince vocal on Sex Shooter. Now, I've heard a vanity vocal on it, but I never heard the Prince, Prince version. So this was a nice surprise to hear that. Also, the vocal take on Jungle Love as well. Gigolos Get Lonely Too. So there was some surprises. 100 Miles Per Hour. This was one that was part of my quote unquote collection. But again, the quality was, a bit jacked. But like I said, it's fun listening to those things in that context, because it's like it's almost like forbidden fruit a bit, and you just kind of like, oh yeah, haha, got this unreleased vault track here, haha, listening to it. But I'd say 100 miles per hour just to have a clean, pristine version. And I think this particular mix of it is, beyond sound quality, beyond that, just better overall, because I love the little lead guitar flourishes in this one. It's very kind of like 78, 79 era Parliament Funkadelic. It's kind of got that to it. Like if you put this and like Bold Generation, like I can hear like, Parliament Funkadelic. Like I say, if you put the horns on it, it's a Parliament song. But just kind of keeping the raw basics, with the heavy guitars and stuff, then yeah, I can see this being another track being on something like Electric Spanking of War Babies easily on that. So that was a nice surprise to hear. Let's see, Baby You're a Trip. That was again something I had, but again, nice to have a very clean version of it. Again, Glamorous Life was another one. Glad to have a clean version of that. To me, Noon Rendezvous is the absolute, for me, the best version of this song, with probably the Sheila E. version kind of being a close second. But as far as a Prince performance of this track, this is my absolute favorite version. Number 2 would be the live version that is on the First Avenue live recording from June 7th, 1984. So those would be my top 2 favorite performances of this particular track, Noon Rendezvous. And, what's really wild is, again, like I said, there's, guys have written songs for girls to sing pretty much since the beginning of singing, probably, but definitely in the vein of recorded music, in the history of recorded music. So, there's always that sort of, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Just that thing, it's the demo, and you're writing it for somebody else. I've been through that process before. You're writing a song for someone else, Now, me, I've always written in the first person. So, it's kind of like I would always write something as if I was going to record it for me. So I don't really necessarily put my mind in the person and, switching the roles and that type of thing like that. So with that, so it was always weird to me to hear, people's demos, and you kind of hear that where they don't switch it, a bit. So they're singing it as if they're the person singing it with that. So, excuse me. So, yeah, that's a trip, but it's an exciting song. Like I said, Sex Shooter, 100 Miles Per Hour. I mean, not Makeup. Those are pretty good. Just interesting, like I said, to see how his recording process works with that. So it's, so that was a bit of a revelation in that, to see it that way. So, but like I said, it was a good collection to put together. Let's see, Love Thy Will Be Done. That was one that I've never heard, at least his rendition of it. And yeah, it's kind of off-putting because a lot of the material here is kind of from the same era, or kind of same 2 to 3 year period. And that was kind of the standout, because that one's kind of later, like later 80s, maybe 1990, 91, so to speak. But they're good songs. Wouldn't You Love to Love Me? This is a version that I don't think anyone's ever heard before. There's other versions that circulate around the collectors a little bit, but yeah, this was one. And I kind of prefer this one over. I mean, I do like the Taja Seville version. That's the one. I think I pretty much like that one the best. I don't remember any Prince versions kind of from that same vein. If there's one version that goes with him submitting that one to Michael Jackson, if it's a different arrangement, that one I would love to hear, to see if he adopts any of Michael's vocal inflections, or if he's really writing that song for Michael Jackson to, tailoring it for him to sing. Or is it like, oh, well, let's have Michael Jackson do a Prince song? So if there's a version of that exists, that one I would love to hear. But this one is pretty good too, and it's kind of got that sort of For You second Prince album era vibe to it, and it's kind of got that little funkier edge to it than other versions that I've heard, and especially the Taja Seville version. So yeah, so this was a great one to have. If you don't have this as part of your collection, this is another one I would highly recommend. As far as any of the, beyond the deluxe edition stuff, I would say the Sony's reissues, like I said, it covers a lot of the later material, and especially as I've been doing the year in review, or even if I've utilized some of those later albums in album spotlights, like a 2010. Like I said, if you're kind of new to the Prince musical singularity, I would say beyond the classic material, things like, get things like 2010, get a musicology, get a 3121, get an artificial age. But as you're starting to dive into the posthumous releases, beyond the deluxe editions, or kind of, if for budget concerns it may take a while to get to those deluxe editions, this is one I would say definitely start with, because as you're getting versed on the classic material, you're also getting versed to the proteges. And starting in the new year, as I do episodes down the line, I'm going to put more of a focus on those. Mainly I focused on the Time, mainly because A, they're my favorite band. B, it's because the campaign for me wanting to see them get nominated, and beyond nominated, even inducted into the Hall of Fame at some point, hopefully 2021. But anyway, that I've been primarily focusing on that. But, there's other favorites. There's Jill Jones. That's another favorite protege I want to focus on. The family, I want to get into that in future episodes. So, but like I said, if you're new to the whole Prince world, and like I said, if you're getting kind of the abridged version of the history with his classic material, and as you're learning about the Sheila E.'s and the Jill Joneses, and if you're a fan of 80s music and the Bangles, Manic Monday, that type of thing, then this is probably amongst the posthumous material I would recommend you get first. Just because of that fact. Because you will get not only the context of which, these songs are placed in not only Prince's musical history, but in the history of music in general. And that's both pop music and R&B music as well. And at the same time, this will be sort of your gateway to the legendary vault, so to speak. So you kind of get an inkling of the man's creative process, and you'll get an official, pristine, as much as the quality of the existing tapes will allow you in this collection. And you don't have to spend whatever, and you don't have to worry about illegal downloads and setting your VPN and all of that stuff to get it and that type of thing. So highly recommend this one, especially for the newbies jumping on board. Like I said, there's the other stuff that you're experiencing, the later material. If that's your gateway and you want to work backwards, this is a good start. So again, so what do you think? Was Originals your favorite posthumous release, or posthumous release, however you pronounce it? Tomato, I think, in this case. But is it your favorite? Is it one of your favorites? Leave a comment. And that's going to end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. Thanks for tuning in. That will complete our review of the 1999 Super Deluxe, which means I got to think about something to talk about for next week. But I know we do have more year in review to cover. Still a long way to go before 2019 ends. And I know the weather's a little dicey out there in parts of the United States here, so especially here as well. Be careful, be safe, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and as always, keep it purple and on the one.